Hello everybody, my name is Patrick Coppinger and my presentation is about developing new teacher training programs to help with preparedness of teaching special needs students. So my first slide quickly is just my table of contents. This is everything we'll be going over: my introduction, my general and background information about the current topic that I'm going to be talking about, current and popular practices within the field, teacher concerns both common and specific, solutions to these concerns both common and specific, current training programs and professional development, how to make a successful training program / professional development day for teachers, training programs regarding common concerns, which I would call required trainings, and training programs regarding specific concerns, which aren't always required trainings. And of course, my conclusion and reference page. So first, let's get into my introduction. We'll be reintroducing my topic, talking about developing teacher training programs. We'll be going over the increase of special ed students, connections, my personal connections to this issue, and why this could be important now more than ever has been in the past. So, many problems may arise in today's classrooms, whether it's in the form of administration, a parent, or even a teacher. However, there are bigger concerns than that when it comes to today's educational landscape. According to Pew Research Center, the population of students in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade who are served under IDEA has grown in both number and share over the last few decades. What exactly does this mean? Well, IDEA stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, meaning there are more neurodivergent students in our classrooms than in the past. In turn, not all teachers may know how to properly handle different scenarios with neurodivergent students. As someone who has worked with neurodivergent children in different environments, such as a daycare and a classroom, it's important to know how to properly handle different scenarios that may arise. Hence why we must develop programs that help teachers feel more prepared when addressing the needs of neurodivergent students. Furthermore, with uncertainty regarding the new government's administration and what they may do to the Board of Education, it's imperative that we take steps to ensure our students get the proper education they deserve. CNN 2024. So next we'll be going over general and background information. I'm going to be going over what special ed is, special ed first, general education, stats on special needs students, what exactly a PD is, a professional development day, / teacher training program, So, before we take a deep dive into what developing a new teacher training program centered around neurodivergent students would look like, it's important to know what special education is and other useful information that surrounds it. Simply put, special education is a system of support available for students with learning differences. Rosencrantz, 2021. This is a good general way to look at special education, but I would like to expand on it somewhat. Special education revolves around a lot of different needs that vary in complexity. For example, students may have learning disabilities, mental disabilities, trouble with emotional regulation, and other related troubles. Now is a good time to look at how special education compares with general education. As noted before, special education deals with various different needs a student may have, But in regards to general education, it has the same end goal. Both are looking to educate students in a way that makes them have a successful academic career. The only difference is the approaches that the two take and how they achieve that. For special education, a teacher may have to take a more specific approach with students to accommodate their needs, while a teacher with general education students can use a more generalized teaching plan to teach them. Now that we have an idea of how the two compare, it's important to note the increase of neurodivergent students. As previously mentioned, the Pew Research Center stated how the number of neurodivergent students has increased over the past decade. To be more specific, more than 7 million students, or about 14% of those ages 3 to 21 in public schools, were entitled to special services and accommodations to help with learning. Rosencrantz, 2021. Based on this information, There is an upward trend of neurodivergent students in our schooling system, meaning there will be more teachers who will now be working with neurodivergent students than before. Hence why it's important that we develop new teacher training programs to help these teachers feel more prepared when teaching neurodivergent students. However, what is a teacher training program, aka a professional development day? Simply put, a PD day is supposed to help teachers improve classroom experience for both themselves and the students they're teaching. Will 2022. Now, we're going to be going over current and popular practices, such as standard approaches of integrating special needs students, some common methods used in the classroom, and seeing if there are any limitations in these approaches. So, over many years, special education has developed and grown alongside research and practical application in the classroom. With this growth, many standards are set in place in our schools today regarding special education. For example, integrating neurodivergent students into the classroom is an important part of a neurodivergent student's success. According to a study done by Helen Benstead, important factors that revolve around successfully integrating a neurodivergent student into the class is by having a teacher that has positive attitudes, making sure that there are peer support systems put in place, and using differentiated instruction for the student when necessary. With all these concepts being used, it shows us a way to successfully integrate neurodivergent students into the classroom. To expand upon these ideas presented, there are many tools and methods that are used to help with this. Other than differentiated instruction, the use of adaptive learning tools and individualized education programs, also known as IEPs, play an important role in having neurodivergent students be successful in the classroom and for the teachers to be successful in teaching them. Rosenkrantz, 2021. Finally, there are some limitations when it comes to these approaches as seen in Helen Benstead's study. For example, it is mentioned that teachers report difficulties when it comes to balancing the needs of neurodivergent students with the broader classroom demands, such as a lack of resources and a lack of training and time constraints in the classroom. Benstead, 2019. So now going into teacher concerns, both common and specific. We'll be talking about what are teachers' common concerns when handling special education students, some of their more specific concerns, and how can all this potentially affect the teacher. So as previously mentioned, the number of neurodivergent students is increasing, meaning new teachers who are not used to working with neurodivergent students may have trouble when teaching these students. Hence, we must note what concerns these teachers may have regarding teaching neurodivergent students. Some of these concerns are regarding a lack of training, a lack of resources, and time constraints in the classroom, as seen in the study Benstead 2019. Those concerns are amongst the more common concerns teachers have in the classroom, but considering neurodivergent students have a wide variety of differences, there are more specific concerns as well. For example, some concerns can be related to certain needs, such as sensory processing needs for students, or managing behavioral issues in students with emotional disorders. Benettini et al., 2022. Finally, it's important to note that teachers shouldn't just be concerned with the students, but also themselves. New challenges, such as working with neurodivergent students, when not given the proper resources or training, can inadvertently lead to stress and burnout, affecting both job satisfaction and retention rates for teachers in the classroom. Agyapong et al., 2022. Now, going on to solutions to these concerns, both common and specific. We're talking about broad strategies to support teachers, specific trainings, and the importance of mental health support for the teachers. So, now that we have a general idea of teacher concerns, the question is, how do we solve them? Starting with teachers' general concerns about a lack of training, resources, and time, there are many broad strategies we can use. Benstead, 2019. Some of these are additional funding for resources, flexible classroom designs, and teacher training / professional development days that focus on working with neurodivergent students. The last one potentially being the most important since it can help solve a wide range of these teachers' common concerns in the classroom. Even with teachers' common concerns being solved, teachers need to be able to handle more specific concerns as well. For example, a teacher working with a student with an emotional / behavioral disorder may want to receive behavior management training. Or a teacher may want to receive resources to be able to use a sensory-friendly room environment for students with autism spectrum disorder. De Olivier Marquez et al., 2023. Finally, going back to teachers' mental health. Teachers need to have their mental health considered while in the work environment. Ways this could be solved is if schools prioritize and promote interventions aimed at teachers' personal well-being. Agnew-Pong et al., 2022. If programs like these were put into place, it could help prevent teacher burnout and improve teacher job satisfaction. Now, going over current training programs / professional development days. We're going to be talking about how professional development days are perceived, how my most current professional development day went, the need for teacher feedback, and what can be improved in professional development days. So just before we start discussing implementing our own training program, it's important to go over what the current state of them are. Current programs can be helpful to a degree, but only if run correctly. But they may not be perceived as negative, and in some cases perceived as something that could be of benefit. Tantaway, 2020. However, less effective programs are usually run based on content knowledge and general principles, which can have little to no impact and end up frustrating teachers who don't see any relevance to their work. Will, 2022. Similarly, I've seen these ideas done in my own professional development days through our school district. Most was general information that made most in attendance feel that it was a waste of time. Furthermore, I was informed that the professional development day I had attended was just a repeat of what they had done last year, which isn't good for the improvement of those working in schools or the students that attend them. Additionally, the topic was about what makes a successful student, which is helpful, but no mention of what that would look like for neurodivergent students. I believe this transitions well into the need for teacher feedback, considering how my own professional development day was just a repeated subject. Taking into consideration a teacher's opinion is important if you want true growth in the staff of the school. Finally, what can be improved in regards to training programs / professional development days? Well, in our case, the lack of inclusion in regards to hands-on training for special education and the way the content is portrayed can be improved upon. Will, 2022. So now we're going to be talking about how to make a successful PD / training day for teachers. In this, we're going to be changing the focus of these PDs. What are the best practices for these successful PDs? What can be incorporated for the students with specific needs? And what can be done moving forward for teachers? So what does success look like in the form of special education-centered training programs? First off, actually having special needs be one of the main focuses. As mentioned before, most professional development days focus on general education populations, with little to no mention of what that means for special education. Regardless of witnessing this firsthand, we previously mentioned how teachers felt they had a lack of training and resources when working with neurodivergent students. Benstead, 2019. To make a successful program, we need to be looking at best practices for making one, such as targeted practical training and ongoing support. Beauvais de Poix et al., 2022. Furthermore, in the article from Education Week, it mentions what works when it comes to program creation, such as focus on instructional practices, prioritize concrete materials for practice, follow-up meetings after, the PD should help teachers build relationships with students, and coaching and teacher collaboration strategies are key. Will, 2022. This gives us a good guideline on how we should build our training programs. Another important addition to our program would be incorporating methods backed by research when dealing with specific needs, such as concept mapping for dyslexic students. Flachos and Samaroff, 2017. Finally, what can be done moving forward with these programs is feedback-based updates and follow-up meetings after program to see if it was effective when applied in the classroom. Will, 2022. Now we're going to be discussing training programs for common concerns that I believe are required trainings. So we're going to be going over these common concerns, why I believe these trainings should be required, to go over what should be involved in these trainings, and how to build on the success of these training programs. So before getting into all that in our training programs for common concerns, it's important to note what exactly that means. Simply put, it's issues that teachers are more likely to run into and will need certain trainings to deal with them daily. With that being the case, teachers will be required to partake in these programs so they can bring success into the classroom. Some of these trainings would be classroom management strategies, communication skills with parents, and universal design principles for accessible learning. Oliver and Reshley, 2007. The use of simulations and role-playing can help teachers practice handling common issues with special needs students. Finally, we can assess and ensure the efficacy of these programs through teacher feedback, and student outcomes can be another important key component of these training sessions. Now, onto our more specific concerns, which wouldn't always be considered required training. We're going to be talking about why specific trainings are needed, training techniques for these specific concerns, and ongoing training/refreshers for teachers. So before going into our training program for specific concerns, it's once again important to note what exactly that means. When it comes to specific concern-centered training, it is centered on who the teacher would be having in their classroom and what they're diagnosed with, hence why it may not always be required. I would propose these are optional training modules focused on particular disabilities, whether that be autism, dyslexia, attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, and others in the special needs field. The use of training techniques for specific behaviors and emotional disorders is something that can be used as a part of training programs as well. For example, a training program for behavior-specific praise could be used in this case to help teachers with students with the previously mentioned disorders. Ennis et al. 2019. Finally, I believe that providing ongoing resources, such as online modules or refresher courses, so teachers can stay updated on best practices, would be beneficial to ongoing classroom success. Finally, in conclusion, the need for comprehensive teacher training programs tailored to the needs of special education students is more critical than ever. As the population of special needs students continues to grow, educators must be equipped with the necessary skills, resources, and support to effectively meet the diverse needs of these students. With these guidelines and certain training programs centered around special needs students, it is possible to achieve these goals in the education space. Here is just my reference page, and thank you so much for listening to my presentation.